This is the Roland P-6. It's a brand new sampler that's being released today. I'm very excited about this product because I love samplers. I've had this thing for about 2 weeks. In that time, I've made a ton of music, so I figured I would make a video and show you how I've been using it. I'm sure that at $219, a lot of people are going to be curious about what this thing can do. Okay, let's get started. So I've got a blank pattern running right now, and the basic setup here is that you've got these 6 pads, and each one is assigned to a different sample. You can have up to 48 samples loaded on this thing at any given time. I'm just going to choose a random bass drum. These buttons on the bottom represent steps in our pattern, and I'm just going to press where in the pattern I want the bass drum to play. That's one of 3 ways that you can program a sequence on this thing. You can also just hit record and play one of these 6 pads. Let's add another percussive hit. And another. This knob I'm messing with here is the pitch knob. You can move the knob and record the motion while the sequence is playing back. Okay, we've got ourselves a drum beat. Let's do some sampling. As you can see, I've got a kalimba here. I'm going to press the sampling button, choose an empty slot, and now it's ready to record. I have this configured to start recording using the onboard microphone as soon as anything loud happens. There are a bunch of different recording modes, but this one is my favorite because it reminds me of the Casio SK1. So now we should be able to press that pad and hear the sound we recorded. I'm going to mess with the start time, set it to be polyphonic, and then once we turn keyboard mode on, we can just play it as a melodic instrument. That background noise that you're hearing is actually the air conditioning system here. It's 96 degrees out. Okay, let's get back to our beat. I'm just gonna mess around until I find something that sounds good with these drums. Okay, let's go with that. Let's add a bass sound. This is a little analog synthesizer made by Panasonic. I made a short video about it a couple weeks ago. To sample this, I'm gonna follow the same process, hit sampling, and then hit the pad I wanna record to, and then hit sampling again. By the way, in this video, I'm only showing recording using the onboard mic, but you can totally record from a line in or from a headset or even USB. Okay, back to our beat. I'm going to lower the pitch on this so that I can use it as a bass instrument. So that's basically what I want. So before I can record that, I need to lengthen my pattern from 16 steps to the maximum of 64 steps. That should give me enough room for my bass line. Remember how I said there are 3 ways of entering notes? The final one, the one I haven't shown yet, is to actually enter in the steps manually. That's what I'm going to do now, really just for the purpose of the video. Normally I just play it in. I hit record but not play, and you can see it says step 1, and I'm free to choose a note, move it to step 5, choose a note again, step 9, step 13, and so on and so forth. It can be a bit tedious, but it does give you the most control. So one thing I'm noticing about this is that those kalimba hits sound very dry. I'd like to add some reverb. This thing actually has a global send for reverb and for delay, and there are actually a bunch of different reverb models to choose from. To start sending a specific pad to the reverb, we select the pad, then we hold down the shift button and hit mixer. And then we can cycle through the options in the mixer menu. Each of these 4-letter codes corresponds to some setting. At first it seems a little bit inscrutable, but after spending some time with the manual, I now know that this 5ND.R thing means reverb send level, and I'm now free to turn up the reverb on the kalimba. This thing also has a granular synthesizer built in, so why don't we check that out? Before we get started, I'm going to record one more sample with it. This is my grandfather's mandriola. It was featured in one of my videos about a month ago. I'm just going to record a single note from that. By the way, don't make the mistake I made. When I first got my P6, I thought it was broken because it wouldn't sample anything. Here's the deal. It comes filled with samples. In order to record to it, you need to free up some slots. So basically, when you get it, listen to all the samples, find a few you don't like, and delete them, and then you're good to go. Okay, let's get back to the Granular synthesizer. So there's a little button here that says Granular, and you hear when I press it, it makes a terrible sound. That's because we haven't specified a sample for the Granular engine yet, and by default, it just picks the first sample on the box. To fix this, we're going to use that same shift menuing system that we used before. This time we're going to go into the voice menu, and the first entry is SNPL, which stands for sample. And now we use this knob to pick which sample we want to target. That's kind of cool. Let's tinker with the settings a little. There are 10 different parameters that control how the Granular engine works. As with all the shift menu options, you'll definitely want to consult the manual. This device packs a ton of functionality into a very small box. And what that means is there are a lot of options in those menus. And you definitely won't necessarily know what anything does just by looking at those 4-letter codes. And by the way, I'm doing this the hard way. You can actually use these knobs up here to control the parameters. But yeah, setting up a Granular pad does require some trial and error. So here's what that mandriola sample sounds like now that it's put through the Granular engine. I'm going to tinker some more with it. I'm also going to change reverb type. Super cinematic, but maybe not quite right for the beat I've been working on. I wonder if I can fix that by shortening the attack. I'm going to try to program some notes in quickly. Here's what I've come up with. Not bad. So that's the basic workflow for making a beat. There are a bunch of other features I won't get to in this video. For example, it can do simple sample chopping based on a grid. Also, you can hook it up to your computer and load samples onto it that way. It comes with this utility, which I've used a bunch. By the way, the samples can be a bunch of different bit rates for people who want crunchy lo-fi samples. This thing also has a built-in USB audio interface, so you can sample directly to and from your computer. In fact, that's what I'm using right now. As you can see, I don't have anything plugged into the headphone jack. This cable's providing power, stereo audio in both directions, as well as MIDI. Now that we've got a beat going, we can mess with the performance effects. There are a whole slew of different effects. Many of them seem to be taken from the SP404, which is a good thing because the SP has really great sounding effects. By the way, you may notice that the kalimba and the drums are being affected, but the bass notes aren't. That's because you can actually choose which sounds are routed through the effects. I think this is the cassette simulator. Oh, and there's another cool thing. If you make a sound that you like, you can actually resample it onto a new pad. What else? It has a built-in battery, so I can make beats while I'm at the park. Lasts about 3 hours. Oh yeah, it has MIDI inputs and outputs, and it can sync with other devices, although I haven't really tried that. All in all, this thing is a ton of fun. The beat-making tools, the tools for actually making music, are extremely intuitive. I think it took me about an hour to start making music I actually liked. Of course, I've owned many grooveboxes over the years, so a lot of the concepts are familiar to me. The only real limitation I've run up against with this device is that you can have at most 8 pads triggering on any given step. If you try to add more, you'll see a message that says full. And to get around that, you have to find another pad that's triggering at that moment and turn it off. Not a huge deal given the kind of music I make, but I thought I would mention it. I'll be very interested to hear other people's experiences with this box. Given the price point, I suspect this thing's going to be a huge hit. Just to put things in perspective, we can compare it with a legendary Casio SK1 sampling keyboard, which, despite its nostalgic appeal, is still a pretty primitive instrument. Anyway, if you take the list price for a Casio SK1 from 1985 and adjust it for inflation, it comes out to about $205, which is pretty close to what this is listing for. How far we've come. Anyway, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed this little tour, and I'll see you soon.